Potato, potato. No matter how you say it, we all love them. It's the potato. It's a basic ingredient, but many people make mistakes, and it starts with buying the right potato. So if you want perfect mashed potatoes, you're going to want to buy a potato like this. This is a russet potato or an Idaho potato. It's a starchy potato. Now there are two different categories of potatoes, and that's the waxy and the starchy, or the mealy they call it. So the waxy potatoes are perfect for roasting, and I'll show you how to do that. And these will keep the potato shape. You want something that's going to hold its shape when you're through the roasting process. And with the starchy potatoes and the Idaho potatoes, you want something that's going to be fluffy and give you that creamy, nice mashed potato texture. So for my mashed potatoes, I always use these kinds, and I just simply peel the potato. And then the key thing is, if you're a slow peeler, which is fine, many of us are, just keep the potatoes in some water while you're cutting, because that will prevent them from oxidizing and turning brown. So make sure you do that. So I have my potatoes, now cutting them. You want to cut them evenly when you make any kind of potatoes, because then they'll cook at the same time. So I'm going to cut about an inch thick medallions out of my potato, all the way. Now I'm going to cut it in fours, each medallion in 4 pieces. And this way we're consistent throughout. Can you see that? So consistent, nice pieces there. All right, and now this is the next important thing we have to remember. So I already pre-cut some before. Let me just cut a few more. And I put them in a pot. Now I have it in a pot here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover them about an inch with water, and it's cold water. This is another important step to perfect mashed potatoes. So I have it in the pot, cold water. Just cover it about an inch. All right, the water has come up an inch above the potatoes. So we've covered the potatoes. Oh, I'm spilling a little bit. As Julia Child always said, if you're alone in the kitchen, no one's here to see, so who cares? So we covered the potatoes in some water, and now I'm going to bring them to a boil. So they're on the stove. All right, can you see here? And I turn on my stove. You could put it on medium-high heat, doesn't matter. And so we're starting with the cold water, and this will make sure that the potatoes all cook at the same time and evenly once again. Very important step. So some aren't too gluey and falling apart, and others are hard. All right, so we bring that to a boil. And notice I have no lid. So no lid, no salt. Bring it to a boil. And then once it's boiling, you're going to cook it until you can prick them with a fork. So as that's going, I'm going to show you how to make perfect roasted potatoes. So roasted potatoes, I like them nice and golden brown, crispy on the outside, nice and fluffy on the inside. So I'm going to use a waxy potato, which are these nice red Bliss potatoes. Sometimes they're small, but it's nice if you get some bigger ones so you don't have to peel a million. You also can leave the skin on if you like the skin. There are some nice nutrients in there, but I'm going to take them off. So I took the skin off, and now I have these potatoes here. Same thing like before. Cut it in 4 pieces. Once I get these potatoes peeled, then I'll show you the next step. So hang tight one moment. Now I've finished cutting my red Bliss potatoes for my roasted potatoes. They're in a small pot here. I didn't make much because I'm one person and I'm only feeding myself today. So I'm going to cover it with cold water. Again, we're actually going to do a very similar process to what we're doing with the mashed potatoes. And with roasted potatoes, we're actually going to do a 3-step process. A lot of people just throw them in a pan and put them in the oven, but they get kind of, some of them are too mushy, the edges might not be brown enough. This is the way to make them perfect. So just cover it with cold water, just enough to cover this time. Now again, I'm going to bring it to a boil, and this is called blanching your potatoes. All right, so once they come to a boil, this time I'm just going to let it boil for about 30 seconds and then shut it off. This is going to jump-start the cooking process, make it a little faster to roast them and make them, perfectly evenly roasted. So just bring that to a boil, 30 seconds, shut it off. Then we'll drain them. We're going to saute them to get them some nice color. Saute them in just some basic canola oil and a little drizzle of olive oil, and then we're going to put them in a roasting pan and finish them, and that's all there is to it. So just hang tight. We're going to let these come to a boil, and we'll move on to the next step. Okay, it's been about 5 minutes roughly, not even, maybe 4.5. And my potatoes have just started to boil on the roasted potatoes. So that's called the blanching. They just came to a boil. 30 seconds later, I'm shutting it off. Now I have a frying pan over here, and I'm gonna get it heated up. All right, so let's get this nice and hot. All right, and I'm gonna drain these off. So let's drain these. I have a colander in here. And like I said, this blanching process is just going to jumpstart the cooking process a little bit for you. All right, just drain them off nicely. Okay, and we want to dry them. That's another important step. Now what you can do is you can stick them in the oven in the pot. Again, if your pot is oven safe, or roasting pan quickly, just put in the oven about 2 minutes and they'll dry the extra moisture out. But I'm just going to use a paper towel today. And just make sure they're nice and dry. Because if they're not dry, you're not going to get that Maillard reaction, which is the browning process, on the potatoes. So I'm just going to dump them out onto paper towels here. And just dry them off real nice. Now my other potatoes, the starchy potatoes for the mashed potatoes, have not quite come to a boil yet because I had a little bit more potatoes and water in there. But they're working. You just want those to be able to prick it with a fork. Now what I love about mashed potatoes is the opportunities are endless. You can add cheese, you can add roasted garlic, chives, cream cheese even, instead of butter, or instead of sour cream is really good. I'm just going to put a little sour cream, or you can use Greek yogurt, which I always use to cut some calories. But I'm just going to use a little sour cream, some butter, and that's it. Mash them together. Simple. All right, these are nice and dry. My pan is heating up. It's getting pretty hot. I'm going to use a blend of oils. You don't want to use all extra virgin olive oil because the smoke point is low and you're just going to burn the oil. It's going to get really smoky and give your potatoes a bitter flavor. So a good amount of oil. You just want it to cover the pan. And like I said, just a little bit of extra virgin olive oil just for flavor, but not a lot. Not a whole lot. I'm running out over here. Okay, little bit. And that blended oil will just give you the right browning and the right flavor. All right. Okay, my oil is just about hot enough. The way you can tell is if you tilt the pan with the oil like this, you'll see a ripple effect start. And that means your oil's nice and hot. You almost want it to be slightly smoky, not a whole lot of smoke and starting a fire, but just a little bit of smoke, and that'll give you, if the oil's really hot, then right away those potatoes are going to start, browning, getting that crispy edge. If not, they're just going to absorb the oil and be mushy and just not get any color. They're not going to look appetizing. They're going to get oily and tasteless. All right. So we're almost there. You want it pretty hot. Takes a minute. Be patient. Okay. And now while this is heating up, I have my oven preheated to 375. So 375, and we're going to roast them right after we saute them. If you use a frying pan that's oven safe, you can actually just use the same pan and transfer it right into the oven and save you some dishwashing as well. Okay, I think we're ready. So now I have my dried potatoes, and be careful. Now the oil may splash, and if you don't dry your potatoes properly, you're going to have an issue. So just be careful. Okay, dump those in. Be careful. All right, now you hear that? They're sizzling. That's really good. Now we're going to brown them. Once they start to brown a little, we're going to give them a toss. If you're not comfortable tossing the pan, no problem. Just use a spoon. All right. We're browning. Just give them a nice toss. Excellent. We're working. Takes a little time, but we'll get there. Now my mashed potatoes, those potatoes just started to boil. So I'm going to check those out. They definitely need more time. So they'll boil, give them about 5 to 10 minutes, and then prick them with a fork and see if they're ready. All right, my potatoes are browned on all sides in the oil. You can see that. Now I'm going to drain off the oil. I'm shutting off the heat, and now you can feel it. They have a nice crispy edge already, and they've completely held their shape, which is really important. And now be very careful. Now dump the oil not into the sink, because you're going to clog your sink because the oil will congeal. Be careful. Or just dump it into, I usually just dump it into a mug or something, and then once it cools, I'll throw it out in the garbage. All right, drain it off. Perfect. Now, I'm just going to put a little touch of butter, which I got to get from my fridge. Now, butter will give it some nice flavor, obviously. And you don't have to put a lot. I'm just going to put, for this amount of potatoes, about a half a tablespoon. All right, and now I'm just going to put it right in the pan. And like I said, I have an oven-proof pan, so I'm just going to use this same pan. Just toss it in the melted butter. Oh, these smell amazing. And they're nice and glassy. You can hear that sound. That's how crispy they are. Now put them in the oven, and that's all there is to it. Now I'm talking maybe 10 minutes in the oven on 375. That's all they'll need. Take them out, test them, cut it open, make sure it's cooked inside, and then you have the right, amount of crispiness that you like and browning. And then just put a nice amount of salt and pepper and just toss it on there. Like you can use some garlic powder on there or fresh garlic, whatever you like. And now let's check on my mashed potatoes. All right, I think they're done. So now I'm picking it up. I'll show you. I can pick up the potato, and I can easily cut through it with a fork. Very easily. That's the perfect amount of doneness that you like. All right. So I'm going to drain this off completely. I'm getting a free facial too from the steam. That's always nice. All right. We've drained them off. Now, while they're this hot, you want to put in the butter. Now, be generous with the butter. I know that this isn't low calorie, this meal, but you want a good amount of butter in your potatoes because they're going to just be so flavorful, so fluffy and delicious. So for about 2 big potatoes, probably put about 2 tablespoons or 3 tablespoons. In French culinary school, they'd probably put a stick of butter at this point. So I mean, butter is delicious, but I'm going to use a decent amount, but not too much. Okay, so now let that melt in there. Now I'm going to throw in some sour cream, which I have in my fridge. And again, just a heaping tablespoon. Just throw that in there. And then just some milk. You can use heavy cream. Wow, the traffic is crazy outside. I don't know if you can hear that, but that's New York City for you. This is real time. So, all right, so I have the sour cream, the butter. Now a hefty amount of salt and pepper. All right, my salt is here. I'm moving it around on myself. Now, put the salt a little bit at a time. Mash your potatoes. Now you're going to want some milk. Now it is important. You want to heat up your milk. If you're going to eat it right away, you want to heat up your milk so that it's hot when you're putting it in the pot. And it doesn't make your potatoes cold. If you're going to eat it in a couple minutes, you still have your rest of your dinner cooking, just throw the milk in. It doesn't have to be hot. And I'm going to wait a little bit. So I'm going to put a little milk. And then I'm going to mash my potatoes. And then right before I eat it, I'm just going to heat it again on the stove. That's what's so nice about it, too. You can make this ahead of time, an hour or so, and then just reheat it. Fine. All right. And then I just mash my potatoes. And another thing about potatoes is if you have one of those potato ricers, or I'll show you this other tool I have called, my mom calls this a Foley mill or a food mill. You can put the potatoes right in there, and that's going to give you a really fluffy potato. But I'm going to go traditional because this is what most people have in their house. So just mash it up. They're so yummy already. They smell delicious. And you don't need much milk. If you have a good amount of sour cream and butter in there, they'll get soft as it is. You don't need to, you don't want a really liquidy potato either. All right, we're almost there. Okay, and I can smell my roasted potatoes finishing up in the oven. Okay, great. Just make sure there are no lumps, or if you like it a little lumpy, that's okay too. Scoop it off, get every bit in there, and that's it. That's all there is to it. Let me show you this beautiful fluffy texture. I know my lighting's a little poor. So fluffy, creamy, wonderful mashed potatoes. I'm gonna give these a try. I'm starving. Burn my mouth. Perfect amount of salt. That was about probably a teaspoon or so of salt for the amount of potato I used, but just do a little bit at a time until it tastes perfect. Now let me check on the roasted potatoes. They're sizzling. Be careful. Always cook with a towel in hand if you're worried about grabbing a pan right out of the oven. It happens. We get distracted. I've done it. Trust me. I've got the burns to show you. Now, look at that. Perfectly golden. They've held their shape. I'm just now going to sprinkle some salt. You can use some sea salt. I even have here, which I'm going to put a little bit on, I have truffle flavored salt that I got at Chelsea Market in New York City. And I'm just going to do a little bit of that. So you have truffled potatoes. And that was simple. One ingredient, really. Potatoes, some oil, and the salt. And some pepper. That's all there is to it. All right, toss them in that. Give them a nice toss. And that's it. Where's my fork? I've got to try these. Perfect. I've pricked them. They're completely tender inside, crispy on the outside. Look at that. The steam just came out. It's like a commercial right now. Oh, so good. Absolutely perfect texture. That's the way to do it. So remember, roasted potatoes, 3 steps. Blanch, we put them in a pot, we cut them up, we peeled them, put them in a pot, covered them with cold water, brought it to a boil. They boiled for about 30 seconds, we shut it off, we drained them, we dried them off nice. We gotta dry them off completely. Then we heat up some canola oil with a little drizzle of extra virgin olive oil. And we heat that up, get that, nice and hot, almost where it's smoking. We put the potatoes in there, we brown them on all sides a couple minutes, just kind of slowly get them nice and crispy and brown. And then we drain off the oil, we put a little bit of butter for some flavor, salt and pepper, put them in the oven, roasted them, took them out, seasoned them with a little more if you need it, and that's all there is to it. Perfect, perfect roasted potatoes. Mashed potatoes, cold water again, brought it to a boil, let them get nice and soft, and then I just mashed them with some butter, some milk, some sour cream, and some salt and pepper, and that's all there was to it too. So that's all there is. Potato. We love them. Enjoy. Thank you so much for watching.